Hello, hello, Authority Establishment, a community. Hello. Jeremy Lastman here with Mallory Weber. We're both part of Authority Establishment, facilitators and coaches. It's a pleasure to be here, Mallory, with you.
Thank you.
How
It's
are
a
you doing?
pleasure to be here. I'm phenomenal. Thank you. I'm really excited for this because honestly, this is a huge topic that really needs to be brought to the forefront now more than ever because we have so much going on in the world. So I'm really excited to do this today.
Yeah. When you threw up that post, I think it was a week or two ago,
Mhm.
I instantly felt the kinship to the Black Sheep vibe. So it's going to be interesting to dive in on this because I think naturally, by the whole definition of it, people can feel pretty lonely if that's kind of their role in the family.
Very
Um,
definitely.
and I think coming together on this and shedding some light, shining some light on it, uh, will hopefully uh, provide some helpful tips for people and light and love. So yeah, I think we should just dive right in. Why don't can you share a little bit about your story first?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as far as the black sheep of the family goes, my, I guess, definition of it or my experience within it is it's pretty heavy and pretty expansive and started very, very early on in childhood. My mom and dad were never married, and quickly after birth, they separated. And very quickly after that, my dad remarried, not remarried because he didn't marry my mom, but actually got married to another woman who had two other kids. So, and then they went on to have three kids of their own. So that kind of made it an instant out for me in their side of things, on my dad's side of things. As far as my mom's side of things, I stayed within her care and her custody primarily through about the age of, man, really until I got to be in about kindergarten or so, then stayed with my dad for a short period of time. And bouncing between the two had made it really difficult because it was one of those aspects of, she doesn't belong, she doesn't fit in, right? And especially of, here this family is already established and has already been around, and then I come into play in kindergarten, right? And I'm just at that point, right? Imagine kindergarteners, what you were like as a kindergartner, the level of innocence that you have. You don't understand what's going on between the relationships and the dynamics of everything. But then you've got, your siblings basically bullying you and picking on you because you're the odd man out, and I don't hold it against them to this day because ultimately, in a sense, they were kind of coached into it. And it kind of was more of a means to kind of get back at my mom in a sense, because there was a lot of really weird and heavy custody circumstances. My custody case is actually a precedent-setting case law in Supreme Court, so it was a very messy
Whoa.
um, custody circumstance. Yeah. So, but that's not even like, to me, that's not even the biggest piece of like where my black sheepness comes from, right? Because, that honestly was such a small, as big of an impact as that is, don't misunderstand that. It was just such a small piece of it that, it proceeded to happen even through, growing up and going to school and things like that. Because, my relationship with my mom was always really, really messy. My mom had moved around many times in my life. So, going to multiple different schools, that kind of always put me as like the odd man out. And it was honestly always hit or miss. It was like either the new kid was super, super popular and everyone wanted to get to know the new kid, or the new kid was like super weird and nobody wanted to talk to the new kid. And, so usually it was more on the weird end of things. And even when people did want to get to know me, then, I would still kind of stay more reserved because ultimately what would happen is, my subconscious would say, hey, don't get too close to these people because you're going to be moving against him.
Mm,
Right? So, it kind of perpetuated that black sheepness on the aspect of school, but then my mom went on, had a new relationship, and had my sister when she was 8, or when I was 8. And at that point in time, there was a good family unit, but that family unit had separated. My mom and my stepdad, my sister's father, got divorced. And, then it kind of was like the black sheep again, right? My sister would go and visit her dad, and then I kind of was just left behind with my mom, who honestly was not a mom. Um, that's a whole different story. But long story short, was deep within her own trauma and deep within her own issues, including alcoholism and mental instability, that she wasn't even able to be a parent to me. So it left me completely alone. And
Mm.
at that point in time, we actually lived all the way out in upstate New York. So I was even isolated from other family that I had. So
Mhm.
at that point in time, had no interaction with my dad or my dad's side of the family, had absolutely no, like phone contact, yeah, but minimal interaction with any family on my mom's side. My
Mhm.
mom's side of the family is relatively small to begin with. So, then you see all these other people with all their big families and their big gatherings and their big friendships. And it was just something that I never fit into, and I remember having like whatever birthday parties and stuff like that. And it was always like, okay, well, figure out who you want to invite. And it was more of like, why do I have to have a party? Why do I have to
Mm.
celebrate me? Why is this who cares, right? Like, and it always would end up, we would turn it into something smaller, is what it would be. We would do like, whatever, a hotel party or something like that with like a couple of small close friends.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I had never fit in from that level. And, with that family dynamic, it makes things very difficult for me to fit in with other people, in my opinion. It makes it very difficult to relate, especially, from the aspect of, people spending time with their parents. It's
Mhm.
something that I've never done that. I've never enjoyed that. It's always been me, myself, and I. And even in raising my siblings, so my mom went on and had another daughter when I was 14, and was not involved with the father of that daughter. And, ultimately, I was the mom. I took care of everybody,
Wow.
so that was my instant role, in addition to taking care of myself, which put me real far on the way out. And it's one of those things that for the longest time I had felt that it was very heavy and was sad and very difficult to work with, until I made it through immense healing and immense trauma release, and have identified that this is the beauty of who I am. This is what sets me apart from everybody else. This is what makes me this completely different individual that has a very different mindset, that has very
Mhm.
different intellectual skills, has very different emotional concepts that not everybody can really comprehend until they're presented with it, because they haven't experienced it. And it's been one of these things that, in identifying myself as the black sheep and identifying how much I don't fit in, that rebirth of not fitting in becomes so much more beautiful and so much more powerful, because it connects me to all these other people that have felt the same way or still feel the same way, but are maybe not necessarily to the point of realizing and identifying that it's really like a superpower.
Mhm. Mhm. I heard the laughing in the background.
That's my son.
Yeah. 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 Superpower. I love how you kind of tie that up into that vision. Uh, definitely. Definitely. It's thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
I can feel yeah, the whole journey with that, like that yeah, I'm so glad that you made it through and you were able to see the gift in all of it, and the the positive and the superpower. Like I
Mhm.
love hearing that. That just makes me happy
Oh,
to hear.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So so for me, there's some similarities and also some differences to your story in that like my black sheepness didn't really come until later in life. The more I started to awaken my own power, the rift started to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah.
um so I was an only child, uh and on my mom's side she had no siblings, she was an only child. And on my dad's side there was she had two sisters, a younger and an older sister.
Mhm.
And growing up, actually, after a certain point, the younger sister ended up being kind of the black sheep in terms of like I never really talked to her. She was never really like a part of any of the dynamics after a certain point. And so I kind of saw that, like, you know, not really understanding what it all was. Um, but my parents got divorced when I was 8, and luckily, not as hard of a custody battle as it sounds like for you. Supreme Court. That's crazy. That the yeah, I can't imagine how yeah, just intense that must have been if you were like aware of that
I'll
growing
be
up.
real honest, that is the least intense part of my life.
Yeah,
That's
wow.
and that's crazy to say, right? Because you're
Yeah,
like, wow, this is crazy. But yeah, honestly, that was the least intense
yeah,
aspect of my life.
yeah. No, I can feel that. So, but my schedule was like really chaotic in terms of like I was going from my mom's to my dad's house every other day.
Hmm.
So literally a different home each day, and then switching off weekends.
That's
And
got to be really rough.
yeah, I mean, at 8 years old, like having to like kind of grow up and handle that, the logistical element of it, and then the emotional component in hindsight. Of course, it taught me a lot about organization and like flow and like
Sure. Because
movement and
ultimately
stuff.
you're bringing your stuff around, and I'm sure I can understand that.
Yeah,
Which those
but
are all helpful, but
yeah,
is
but
it
on
worth what you've gone through because of it?
yeah, that is the question. That is the question. But I mean, yeah, like you can just gather from that, like the idea of roots and grounding and like home, like the actual home feeling.
Hmm.
It was kind of split in my head because I was a different boy with my mom and different boy with my dad, like personality wise, like energy wise, and so there, like the idea of committing to something was really tough because it was always the next, always on the move to the next, right? And that sense of rooted groundedness that most people get, I think, from home. Uh, Maybe I didn't really experience that to the depths.
Hmm.
Um, and so for me, up until maybe 20 mid 20s ish, maybe a little older than that, like I was more the lone wolf, like uh not necessarily black sheep, but lone wolf in terms
Yeah,
of self-sufficient, only child, reclusive, shy, introverted, in my own dream world kind of thing, right? And really good at blending in. I was a chameleon, people pleaser, chameleon. Uh, Really good at being under the radar and invisible as a power. Not ruffling feathers and not standing out, not you know putting attention, the spotlight on myself,
definitely.
um, because I think there was a sense of rebelliousness to that. There was like, you know, how much can I be invisible? And I took that on as like a game for myself. Um, and and so it was basically like monorail blinders, just getting to the next carrot, getting to the next carrot, just got to get through this year, semester, college, like just get to the end, that finish line kind of mentality. And around 21, 22, I started to have like awakening experiences,
Yeah,
and started to go to therapy, and just personal development, spirituality in general. Like I was agnostic. I was raised Jewish, but I didn't have any connection, emotional
sure.
connection to it. And so as I started to dive into my own work, the I and healing, right?
Mhm.
The pain that I would commiserate with, mostly on my father's side, but the whole family in general, uh, the pain that I was commiserating with, I kind of ceased that
Mhm.
tie, um, of the generational trauma, ancestral, a lot of negativity, and that skepticism, that like intelligent negativity worldview was a beast to face, in terms of like my work and healing and transformation. And it's, I think, why we're both do what we do is because we've been through that.
Absolutely. And honestly, I really love that you touch on that perspective because truthfully, from what I've seen, and I'm sure you would agree to this perspective, that the people that seem to have some of those heavier traumas, those deeper experiences, and the more magnitudinal issues of spirituality or enlightenment tend to be the people who also come with those karmic ties, those ancestral boundaries, those, interwoven, carried through your DNA
Right.
sort of issues,
Right.
and I'm not sure on your end, you probably could see this, but, especially on my end, when I separate and look at both parent, I can see how specific things have carried over, and it's a matter of, you know breaking those ties, like you said, cutting that connection to those specific experiences
Right.
that allow you to accelerate.
Yes. Oh man. I just got to take a breath on that one because that's a lot of truth bombs there for sure.
Really, and my hope is that for, anybody listening to this, right? I'm hoping that people who feel this way, who feel ostracized, who feel isolated, or maybe they self-isolated like you
Mm,
chose that path. You kind of focus more on that lone wolf route, and for the people who feel like they're kind of that odd man out, you know, I want them to understand, because so few know, that there typically is a deeper seated reason behind it outside of the present visual experiences that you can list off right away, right? So, like in my examples of my story, I walked through a timeline. There are also a much deeper seated emotional and energetic connection through those experiences, but not only just those experiences, also through the individuals involved in those experiences, their DNA, their ancestral ties, their karmic events, everything flowing,
mm,
interwoven together, because that's what this is that we are all one part of one massive energetic field,
yep.
and with everything bumping and moving and hitting into each other. That's why this is so important for people to be able to identify, okay, do I fall into this category as being an individual, or someone who is kind of against the grain, or not necessarily fitting in, and then identifying these are the people who have really deep purpose,
Yes. Yes.
because these are the people who are going to be making the changes and making the steps in the revolution that is currently underway and has to be happening at a faster exponential rate.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And if I can like, I'll paint a different like angle so people can get like a different perspective. Is like the the reason that the black sheep is kind of what's the word, ostracized, you used,
Yeah.
disowned, I guess might be another word,
Hmm.
right? um, because in that ancestral lineage and the way that the those two families come together to create you, and they're passing down whatever that that DNA is, and the amalgamation of those two families coming together carries with it the programming, the belief structures, the operating systems, like whatever kind of way you want to look at uh, the information that is getting passed on. I call it in my writing, I call it the trauma baton. So it's
Mm.
the
Hmm.
memory, like, in the Jewish, the Holocaust, or like slavery, all of those things are things that were learned, were lessons, were experiences, were traumas, were historic points of data that made a survival of the fittest decision.
Yes.
A black and white, like, we're never going to let this happen again. You must remember this forever, and pass, 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 pass. And
You gave me chills.
uh,
It's so correct.
yeah, yeah, and so what we've done is we've saying, no, we're not going to unconsciously carry that program anymore. But what it looks like to the old system is a complete, intolerable, shameful, uh, just completely disallowed uh, worldview that totally
Absolutely.
counters what they have been conditioned to carry on and pass
Mhm.
down. And so we're saying, no, the buck stops here. We're not going to continue this pattern. This pattern no longer serves. We are going to evolve beyond it. And the black sheep, the that energy, like you said, it is creativity, because creativity is essence, like birthing something new that the world has never seen before. And so for us to be able to get to that space, we have to jettison outside of the tribal consciousness. And it's that tribal consciousness that is what sets off the triggers of fear, because
Absolutely.
we're going outside the tribe, and that's the most unsafe thing from a survival of the fittest paradigm.
No
To
one
be
did that.
no,
Absolutely. That's how you survived. You stayed within your tribe. You followed the tribe leader. You stuck to your role. If you were a hunter, you're a hunter. If you're a gatherer, you're a gatherer. If you're a wife and you're a home bearer, then that's your job. That's your role, and you didn't differentiate from that.
right, precisely. And so for us to do that, it's sending off the fight or flight fear, like the most core fear of death for their children. And so that's where the compassion for me comes in. It's like you can start to see the illusions that they're buying into that are really in the nervous system, the most dangerous things that could actually, like, be what's it called, foretold, right? Like
Mhm.
the everything about it is saying it's the most unsafe thing in the fucking world, like that. And
Absolutely. Even
that's
having this conversation wouldn't even exist back in the day. If you had this conversation, you would be considered, an outcast, an individual who needs to be removed, right? You
yes.
could be potentially risking your life at that point in time. And so, for people to understand that, they need to fight that fear. That fear is innate. That all of this is innate, like you're saying, is this tribal feeling, this societal ingrained, notion that has been taught to us all these years,
Yep.
over and over and over and over again. And we're finally at this point that so many people are starting to wake up, and we're seeing it at a much more rapid pace. And it's like, okay, if more people came together and identified all of these traumas and identified and renounced them and said, I'm not going to do this anymore,
Hmm.
but put it out there for the forefront for people to see, that's when real change happens.
Yes. Look, we got a comment from our leader, Palace. Belief systems about how we show up in the world according to what has impacted us in this life or packed on to our own unique DNA from our ancestors are passed down in our DNA
Mhm.
and cloud our own natural consciousness. We end up living pathological lives when we don't know we can unpack all that crap we've been passed down. Yes, with back
Absolutely.
on in this life. Yeah, unknowingly. Yeah, totally, totally. And yeah, so I think we should give all of ourselves a pat on the back, that we're courageous enough to step outside of um, the caution tape, the caution ropes, of what's normal, what's allowed, what's not guilty or shameful about existing, and
Exactly.
to reinvent and reimagine and reacclimate to, like Palace said, the natural consciousness, that is creativity, that is pioneering innovation and new ideas and new systems. So yeah, I'll give you a congratulations, and yeah, uh,
Right back at you.
yeah. So if, yeah, like I think it's important, like you mentioned, if people feel like the black sheep and they feel lonely, they feel you know uh, shamed, judged,
Yeah,
uh, that there is so much to be leveraged when you're no longer trying to look for the I want to say, when you're not looking for the familial connection where you're used to looking for it, where it's comfortable. But that, for me, what really helped, because I'm a big picture guy, is to find the family in humanity, the
yeah,
family in the human species, from that highest level. That for me just like allowed me to detach from maybe what the intimacy that I was looking for with certain people, and um, the negativity that I thought I had to subject myself to, and the pain in
absolutely.
that. Um, but
I
when
mean,
I,
and the thing
yeah,
is within that is that, we're taught, right? We're taught that
yeah,
our family is our blood, right? Like
mhm,
nothing is thicker than blood. Okay, we got a
mhm,
comment here. I wanted to see what Ashley is saying. Who wants to fit into the tribe? Black sheep are the trailblazers.
mhm,
Absolutely right.
mhm,
Absolutely right. The trailblazers, the, ingenuity, concept makers, the people who are taking things to a new level. And, just look at where we're at right now in the world.
yeah,
Think about where we're at right now 50 years ago. Think about where we're at 100 years ago, right? And everything is expanding at an exponential level. And so if we can continue this exponential rate, and what I was going to say as far as like tying it into, the familial aspect
mhm,
is that, we've been taught that blood is thicker than water. We've been taught that we need to rely on our family systems. I'll tell you right now, I have friends that I haven't even known for more than a year that would do way more things for me, for my family, for my friends, even for people that they don't even know but relate and connect to me because of me, because they care for me, because they relate with me, because they connect, and because there's this deeper energetic and emotional exchange that, we're taught should occur naturally within our family
yeah,
and doesn't because our families are so broken. And honestly, I think so much of it comes down to an aspect of vulnerability.
yeah,
We haven't been allowed to be truthful or vulnerable until this point in time. And it's still just now starting to become an accepted thing.
yeah, yeah. Mm, yeah, spot on. And it sucks. Speaking personally too, the when when you're not even allowed access to communication, when even the communication is shut off.
Yeah.
That's really tough too, and I had to feel some sadness around that. But I think yeah, it's all calling into power, more power.
Well, and I think the thing that is needs to be said in aspects of when the communication is gone, people need to learn that it's okay to look inward.
Mm,
And
and
it's okay to be one with yourself. And I know you know that as the lone wolf. I know you can feel that as the lone wolf. But so many of us are not conditioned that way. So many of us are not okay and comfortable to be within our own skin and within our own space.
yeah,
And without that open communication, and look, COVID is going on. That's limited so many things for so many people. But
yeah,
honestly, it is a period of time of reflection. We've been given this space to be able to look inward on ourselves and identify who we are, what our familial ties are, what we need to break from, what we
mhm,
need to move forward to, and be able to connect at a deeper level that way.
mhm. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. That's good. We have one more comment here. I want to be a black sheep. I'll trade homogenization and sitting down and shutting up to go my own way and be authentically me. Amen to that.
Hell yes, Ashley. You're well on your way, girl. You are
Ashley.
well on your way. If you
Yeah.
don't call yourself a black sheep, I'll call you one for you because I see it ingrained in you.
Yeah. All right. I think I think that's great. Unless you have any like final remarks, I mean, we could probably go for a couple hours, but
I'm
we
sure we
set
could.
some boundaries today. So, yeah, I think if anyone is curious about this, about any questions about how to accept this, how to feel empowered by it, to just drop some comments or reach out to us. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it was an honor and a pleasure to explore this with you. Uh,
Thank you. You
Black
too.
Sheep, Black Sheep Unite.
I guess I also would love to say, like, if you feel like you're a black sheep, like, get into our mighty networks. There's plenty of black sheep over there in our mighty networks, and we are
Yeah,
paving a way for something completely revolutionary, and that's the space that you're going to want to be in.
yeah, and I will drop a link in the comments below to join up.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, Mallory, and the rest of the Authority Establishment community audience. I'm Jeremy Lastman and Mallory Weber. See you guys later. Bye bye.
Thank you.